shaking hands and smiling.
And it's the opening ceremony for a new road in Calgary, but not everyone is celebrating. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Joyce Echaquan was remembered on Parliament Hill last night during a vigil. She died in hospital in Joliet, Quebec last week, but not before posting to social media racist remarks made by nurses. After the vigil, family and community members met with Cabinet Ministers Marc Miller and Carolyn Bennett. Jamie Pashigumskum was there when the family's spokesman pleaded from his knees for change.
Miss Miller, je vous supplie de m'aider. Je vous supplie, Madame Bennett, de m'aider. Je ne veux pas attendre un an. Je veux en action. Je veux que les actions soient posées dès demain matin.
Guy Nikwe was then joined by Joyce Echaquan's 16-year-old son, Thomas James. Echaquan's husband, Carolyn, also spoke at the meeting.
Je vous demande de me trouver des réponses parce que je n'ai que ça, des questions, des sympathies. Mais j'ai pas de réponse. Il n'y a pas un humain qui mérite de mourir dans l'indignité. Dans l'humiliation, dans la peur.
The meeting took place after an evening vigil on Parliament Hill. Over 140 people attended it, and opening remarks were made by Algonquin elder Claudette Commanda. Back inside, Ministers Marc Miller and Carolyn Bennett passed a yellow scarf between them, given to them by the family as a promise to act. Miller said the healthcare system has failed Indigenous people for far too long.
This is a family that didn't want to be here tonight. They came here because racism forced them to be here. And
Miller called the tragedy intolerable and disgraceful and was at a loss for words.
I'm still digesting what was said, and I'm feeling very deeply for the family tonight.
Carolyn Bennett was noticeably moved by the family's pleas.
They shouldn't have to beg. This is our responsibility as Canada to make sure this never happens again. That this indignity, humiliation were the words that we heard tonight. The lack of justice, and we have promised that we will walk with this family till they see justice.
Bennett took responsibility in recognizing that racist behaviors are ongoing within the health system with little accountability.
Other families shouldn't ever have to go through this again, that they wouldn't be able to say goodbye, and that the last words that their loved one heard were racist.
Nikwe said he is honored to walk with the family and is cautious the government will bring the family justice.
Des résultats, des choses qu'on a demandées. Je veux pas être trop content pour ne pas être déçu. Et puis je ne demande que qu'on travaille ensemble.
More vigils like this one are being postponed as COVID-19 restrictions get tighter in Ontario. The Sisters in Spirit annual gathering on Parliament Hill scheduled for this Sunday has been cancelled. Jamie Pashigumskum, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Today, Echaquan's family gathered with the Atikamekw leaders and a lawyer at the Native Friendship Centre in Lanaudière to explain their next steps. Our Lindsay Richardson was there.
A big development today in the case that has gripped the nation. Joyce Echaquan's family says they will be pursuing legal action against a number of stakeholders, and the Quebec City law firm now representing them says they're prepared to take her case as far as the law will allow. Echaquan's partner, Carolyn, wept, saying he's convinced the love of his life died because of racism. Lawyer Jean-François Bertrand says the first step will be to sue Joliet Hospital for damages. Then there may be a criminal complaint to come. They're also considering opening a human rights case and a complaint against law enforcement. Finally, they'll be filing a complaint with the OIIQ, the Quebec body that issues nursing licenses. Now, the hospital confirmed earlier this week that one of the nurses seen in Echaquan's live stream video was fired, adding on Thursday that a patient attendant was also fired. But the family and the lawyers now involved want all of the people involved in Echaquan's care to have their licenses revoked so they won't be able to practice again. They also say that they're going to be demanding involvement in the upcoming coroner's inquiry so as to obtain all of the documents and information needed to move forward with these separate complaints. Today's news conference ended with a somber message from the family to Premier François Legault. Instead of continuing to make promises, move forward and take action. And that begins with recognition that systemic racism does in fact exist in Quebec's hospital systems and beyond. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Joliette.
Ghislaine Picard, Regional Chief of the Assembly of First Nations for Quebec and Labrador, cancelled the scheduled morning meeting with Premier François Legault because members of the Atikamekw Nation were not invited. The meeting was set weeks ago but was moved up because of the uproar over Joyce Echaquan's death. Picard based his decision on involvement from all implicated chiefs and nations. He says he was uneasy proceeding without Atikamekw leadership present, so he cancelled in an act of solidarity.
The fact that the leadership, the Atikamekw leadership, has made it clear that there's an urgency here for the government of Quebec to act. And I understand that the best assurance that they had received is that, yes, a meeting is possible, but it's not going to be on the short term. The Atikamekw Nation is saying, well, you know, that's not good enough for us.
But during Friday's daily COVID-19 briefing, Legault said this is not the first time Picard has cancelled a meeting with Quebec, and that Atikamekw participation was never requested. Legault says the AFN-QL is playing games. Well, we want to hear what you have to say about all this. Here's how you can continue that conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news. Residents of the Northwest Territories are gathering in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls this week. Charlotte Moore Jacobs takes us to Yellowknife for that story.
Each ribbon pays tribute to a sister stolen too soon. Over the next few days, Tree of Honor ceremonies are taking place in each region of the Northwest Territories. Supporters in Sambake, Yellowknife, are here to remember missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
My name is Councillor Stacey Arden Smith.
And share personal stories.
And I looked at the men coming for me, and I looked at Portage. And I decided to take my chances, and I darted across that road. Those men jumped into that vehicle, and they went up to the next turn, and they swung a Yui. And I ran as fast as my feet could carry me, and I prayed to the Creator, make me fly.
Stacey Smith reflected on being a student in Winnipeg and reaching a bus stop just in time.
I remember feeling terrified, and I saw that truck slowly pass by the crowd, and they scanned for me. And I sat there praying, please don't let them know I'm here. Please don't let them catch me. Because I feared that if they did, that they would drag me out of that crowd and nobody would have cared. I was one of those lucky ones that night.
Organized by the Status of Women Council in the NWT, Carolyn spoke of the Territory's work in developing its own action plan in response to the MMIWG inquiry, but recognizes past failings to address core issues.
I am conscious that governments can and have too easily slipped into talking only to one another, drafting strategies, but failing to translate our strategies into implementation. But there does appear to be support and willingness at all levels of government to do what is right and necessary to...
The final report of the MMIWG National Inquiry included 231 calls to justice. Many of those needed to be taken by governments, organizations, and communities. Ruth McCurdy chose to speak at the individual level, looking ahead to end the genocide and honor loved ones.
Well, I just want to start out by honoring some of the family members that we have lost to this cycle of violence. And one of them is Janelle McCurdy and her sister Shelley McCurdy, and my daughter Deanna Mickelson, and my niece who we just lost not too long ago, Alexa Lindbergh. And I want to honor these ladies and all the other missing and murdered women that are out there.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Still to come, a Tsuut'ina man makes a powerful statement when he crashes a government announcement. Stick around. Here's a look at Saturday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Showers and 20 for St. John's. Rain and 19 in Halifax. 5 with snow in Inukjuak. +1 and snow in Kuujjuaq. 14 with showers in Montreal. 10 in Saguenay. 13 in Toronto. 12 in Ottawa. 9 in Sault Ste. Marie. 7 with rain-snow mix for Thunder Bay. A rain-snow mix and 5 in Sioux Lookout. Snow and 4 in Churchill. Snow and 3 in God's Lake. 10 under sunny skies for Winnipeg and Barons River. 12 for Dauphin. 14 in Regina. 15 in Saskatoon. 10 in La Ronge. 11 in Buffalo Narrows. Welcome back. A new road is open in Calgary and it borders along the Tsuut'ina Nation. The Alberta Premier and Tsuut'ina Chief say it's a day of celebration. But one man interrupted the ceremony to say his family was displaced so the project can be built. Marc has that story.
The new Tsuut'ina Trail in Calgary. It'll bring economic opportunities for Tsuut'ina Nation, and according to Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, it'll make traveling through the city easier for residents.
Calgary will be moving more quickly, more efficiently, getting people home quicker, getting people to work more quickly.
But one member of the Tsuut'ina Nation says this isn't a day for celebration.
Today is not a good day. Today is not a day to be shaking hands and smiling.
Seth Cardinal Dodging Horse interrupted the opening ceremony to share his family's story of being displaced from their home, lived in for generations, to have this road built.
The ring road is built on my family's land. I lived on 210 Weasel Head Road. If you look straight down that way, you can see where my family's home was. People are going to be driving on my family's home.
Dodging Horse says there was a lack of consultation. His family was removed from the home in 2014, left out of Tsuut'ina support and services, and left homeless. This road has been in the works for the past 70 years. The nation agreed to the highway in exchange for $340 million and 5,000 acres of Crown land. But Dodging Horse says this isn't worth what's been taken.
We lived here, we grew up here, we touched that land. The way this land was taken was not healthy nor well done. Again, it was hard to read your development plans. You left us out of Tsuut'ina Nation history.
He ended his speech by cutting his braids and tossing them onto the road. Chief Troy Whitney responded by adding that families displaced received additional homes or new land to rebuild.
When the vote occurred, it was close to 80% in favor of conducting the deal with the province.
Tsuut'ina Trail is just a portion of the city's future ring road. The entire road is set to be completed in 2024. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Calgary.
Quite a statement. To Toronto now, where a coalition of lawyers and advocates are taking the city back to court. They filed a lawsuit against the city last April, saying Toronto isn't doing enough to protect the city's homeless from COVID-19. They were back in court today, arguing that the city still isn't complying. Jamie Pashagamscom spoke with some of the people on the ground in Toronto.
This is Trinity Bellwoods Park on Dundas. There are tent cities like this all over Toronto, and Stephanie Williams has stayed in a lot of them, and she's constantly having her belongings stolen.
If there was like a group of people living together, that's what would usually happen when the stuff is stolen.
She's hoping to keep herself safe from infection of COVID-19.
We gotta find, hopefully, like work together to find more space somehow. But we gotta do the COVID thing for the 6 feet, right?
Doug Johnson-Hatlam works at the Sanctuary Shelter. He's been involved in the court case from the beginning. He says Stephanie's case is the result of the city cutting beds in May, trying to meet court orders.
The city had to provide them a bed. The city agreed they would provide them a bed, and so Stephanie would be covered under that agreement.
Doug says the city is breaching it by reducing shelter capacities, and the remaining beds are too close together.
They're still not 2 meter distanced in all directions, and even to get close to that, they had to turn people like Stephanie away from the system regularly that under the agreement have a right to have a shelter space.
Nikki Sutherland was in a shelter, then a tent like her friend Stephanie. Sutherland is now in a hotel rented by the city, but she still doesn't feel completely safe.
I still wouldn't feel safe going back to a shelter because a lot of them are still not like distancing enough, and they're full. You don't know, like people are still allowed to come and go, and you don't know where they've been. It scares me. I mean, I want to stay healthy, not just for myself, but I mean, like, because for my children, for my friends, my elders, you know.
For the Superior Court case happening this week, the City of Toronto told APTN in an email the city disputes the allegations made in the applicant's court filing. City staff have been working tremendously hard since the beginning of this pandemic to ensure that physical distancing was implemented and maintained within the shelter system. APTN has reported that indigenous make up 16% of people on the street in Toronto, but only 2% of the population. Johnson-Hatlam says women like Sutherland and Williams are owed.
The city does have a special obligation to people like Nikki to get her housing, to people like Stephanie to make sure she's in shelter. These are indigenous women who are, have so often been targeted in Canada, and who wouldn't be in such dire conditions if it hadn't been for the history of 300 or 400 years of colonialism.
With winter on the way, these tents are all these people have to protect themselves from the cold. But will they protect them from a second wave of COVID-19? Jamie Pashagamscom, APTN National News, Toronto.
Now to British Columbia, where investigators are trying to find out how a dam in North Vancouver released water without any warning, and sending a wall of water racing down the Capilano River. One person lost their life, and others were washed downstream. Tina House reports.
Here at the Cleveland Dam, the water is normally just slowly coming out of the release chamber. But on Thursday, October 1st, in the late afternoon, during routine maintenance of the dam, something went wrong, and it triggered water to be released, as seen in this video. The leak caused water to come barreling down the Capilano River with no warning. Kiefer and his two cousins were fishing when he noticed that something was wrong.
All of a sudden we hear, thunder coming down. It sounded like from upriver, and we didn't know where it was coming from. I kind of heard it first, and then I looked over to my right, and I just seen a big tidal wave.
Isaac says that the three of them had just seconds to get out of the water.
The only thing I seen go down was looked like fishing bags, but when my cousin Kiefer thought it was, could have thought it was a body, but then we're just worried about ourselves. I was like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here because we're trying to get the rest of our fish. I was like, our lives are more important because at that point we're scared for our lives because you never seen that ever happen out of all of our years fishing here.
Chris Lewis is a band counselor for the Squamish Nation. He says that his community has always feared that something like this could happen.
There's been ongoing calls from our fishermen and our community members to have some sort of warning system installed so that if it's a siren, if it's some sort of lights under the bridges that cross the river, enhanced protocols to ensure that we're notified of any planned, water releases, all of those types of things. We all need to do a better job.
4 people were washed downstream and had to be rescued. 1 person lost their life and was recovered by the mouth of the river. Search and rescue are continuing the search for the victim's son at this hour.
If they're doing maintenance, they should have at least alarmed all of us down the river. Like, if they did have that alarm system and they actually hit that button, like, that would have saved those 2 people's lives, and like, they would have made it back to their families.
Squamish Nation band member Cloth Bay came to the river to honor the life lost and the survivors. Tina House, APTN National News, North Vancouver.
Time for another quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Here's a look at the rest of your Saturday weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 22 in Grand Prairie, 12 for Fort Chipewyan. 20 and sunny for Medicine Hat and Red Deer and Edmonton. 18 in Vancouver and Victoria, 25 in Penticton. 18 for Fort Nelson, showers, and 14 for Dease Lake. 14 in Old Crow, rain, and 12 for Whitehorse. 10 in Yellowknife, 19 in Fort Simpson. +1 in Saxe Harbor, 9 in Paulatuck. -1 with snow in Chesterfield, 0 and snow in Baker Lake. -5 with snow in Resolute, 2 below and snow for Igloo Lake. Welcome back. A derogatory name for a mountain near Canmore, Alberta, has been changed by a nearby First Nation. The Stoney Nakoda Nation held a ceremony to reveal the new name of this mountain peak, a bald eagle peak, to honor Indigenous women. For decades, its name included the word squaw and has been a controversial topic for the past 6 years. The name can be found on hiking guides and Google Maps. Elder Alice Kekwitz says when she heard of the racist name, she was deeply offended.
The lack of disrespect for women really came out when I heard that name. And how, as an Iiska woman, from the outside perspective, that was how I was viewed.
And that is your APTN National News for this Friday. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.